when you think about the building blocks for the future of finance, what do you think about digital environmental assets? What is the core value that we need to represent? What are exciting tools that we need to be aware of? And with that, I think that's more than enough to take it away. Maybe we'll start with you, Michael. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. A great collection of other panelists. So I was in a central bank for over 10 years, and we had roughly 66 billion of gold coins in our basement, the Bank of England. And by the way, none of it's ours. Gordon Brown sold all of the British gold, so we were just keeping it on hold for everyone else. But that's an interesting way to think about what's value is. What do we value? And so we've got sitting in the basement 66 billion of gold. We certainly have our own fiat currency, but it's also often represented in a electronic phase. Because people talk about digital currencies. We've already got an electronic system already. But what creates value? And I guess to give a little context, when I came into the BOE, I came in the same time as Mark Carney, and we viewed that threats to nature and to the earth were going to be threats to financial stability, period. And that was something that needed to get into the global financial system. So at the time, Mark was the head of the FSB and the head of the Bank of England. So we basically kicked that ball into the G20. And I had the great honor of representing the United Kingdom as a co-chair with Dr. Mao Zedong of China as the first chairpeople of the Sustainable Finance Study Group, which was the first time anything nature-based ended up in the finance track of the G20. And by the way, if you've ever heard the golden rule, whoever has the gold makes the rule. And again, I'm keep going around value. That's the track in the G20. That's the track of the central bankers and the ministries of finance. They finance the environmental ministries and everyone else. So I keep coming back to value. So we've spent a lot of time in the G20, a lot of time in the BOE, trying to understand where value is created, not just in our systems, but also where the threats to it are. Now also the BOE spent a lot of time trying to put value on nature. We've done some reports. So has the Dutch Central Bank and the De Kupte report. So central banks are also starting to understand nature has real value. Carbon, we already figured out. And carbon is moving very quickly into a system where it's going to be very close to a currency. Basically being able to take a ton of absorbed or sequestered carbon and being able to create a forward pricing curve with financial service architecture, documentation. I just came out of a meeting this morning how we're trying to accelerate that. To be quite honest, not to get very boring, but we're on financial topics and things, but they're going to be derivatives. And you need ISDA documentation if you want to trade a derivative in the marketplace. And all of this actually matters for nature as well. I'm going to quickly hand off, but again, I want to talk about value one more time, because the southern part of the world has value far greater than large elements of the northern part. And we start thinking about and putting prices on water, on trees, on biodiversity. We find, where does that sit? I'm doing a lot of work out of Asia, and I say that my next door neighbor, Indonesia, is the left lung of the world, and obviously Brazil's the right. And Africa, absolutely critical. And we need their natural capital as a system-based world more than we need that 66 billion we've got sitting in the basement of the Bank of England. So how do we, and I'm hoping this discussion today, at least from a central banker's point of view, on how do we start tokenizing, how do we start building systems that actually create not only the value, but transfer that value around the world. When we get our very smart content people and our tech people in, we'll do that, and then maybe I'll come back in and talk a little bit how that can be plugged into the global system. So with that, I'll hand off to my esteemed colleague over here at Metabolic.